So, welcome everyone to another episode of Weaving the Web with Taylor and Patti. These shows are pretty much unplanned. We have kind of an idea of what we want to talk about, but we don't really have a script. Taylor and I enjoy our conversations so much that we just decided that we would record them. And if you find inspiration and laughter in them, then yeah, I guess we've done our job. So
And organized chaos is what created the universe anyways, right?
that's right. Well, the thing about doing something like this unplanned, or doing something like this where you're putting your face and your words and everything on a screen and then you kind of put it out there, I think, a lesson in vanity. So there are those
Yeah.
perfectionists, and they would have difficulty with this because they're like, oh no, I need my makeup needs to be perfect, my hair needs to be perfect, my words need to be, everything needs to be, I know, I like your hair. Everything needs to be perfect, or I can't put it out there because that would do something to my to my self image. But
Yeah.
the whole process of this, I think, is an exercise in facing those challenges. And it also really calls to us to be creative, to be creative,
Yes.
so that we're not scripted, that we're kind of creative in an unpredictable way. We're allowing the thoughts and the inspirations to kind of flow. And it also gives us an opportunity to flow with each other, to
Yes.
create together. Whatever is going to happen will unfold. And so I think that there's something really wonderful about that. So
Yeah.
promise that we're not putting out a video that says this is the shocking information that you really need to know today
You must watch.
in order for you to prepare for what's coming. It's one of those.
Let's spit out my coffee.
Did I make you spit out your coffee?
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for that, because I can't say that there's not a moment, preparing, that I'm like, okay, this is what I have to have ready. This is what I wrote down. And then have this moment where I'm like, do I put on makeup? Do I do my hair? And then I'm like, no, I don't, because that's not authentic.
Right. Exactly. And I love that we can hear people here now. Do you know what kind of bug that is? That is.
It's a cicada, and they are screaming.
I absolutely love that we can hear cicadas in the background. So our audience, if you're wondering what that sound is, it's cicadas, and I think it's wonderful. What's that part of the lyric?
And I quote,
Sinatra song.
such a loud voice for a tiny creature. And it's so very true.
It is.
Which is also relatable for me, because I'm a pretty tiny creature with a pretty mighty voice.
Yeah, you really, really are. And you have, I wouldn't say that you're loud, but I think so many of us have a much bigger presence than our package.
Yeah.
Our bodies, and I think that that's true for many humans. And if you think about humans energetically, we think that all that we have is like contained in this physical body, and we don't think about ourselves. Well, more and more we do, but that's changing. But so
Yeah.
we don't think about ourselves energetically, and in terms of our energetic field being, kind of going so much further out from our bodies. So
It's like an energy cycle.
absolutely,
And what are we putting out? And what are we getting back constantly?
right. It's
in and out of our bubble.
Right. And I believe that a lot of the energy comes out. So you think about it, and it kind of emerges out. So it's above us, it's all around us. And that's why when someone walks into a room, or if you walk into a room, people experience you before you speak.
Yeah.
Some of that's in body language. They're so, like, humans are so.
I also think that there is I almost want to just call it essence.
Yes.
And certain, like, folks, or not even, but just people that can vibrate on your frequency are like, hey, you know? It's kind of like walking through the forest. It's always like, you know, in my world, in the plant world, we want plants to speak to us. We want to have this tangible relationship with plants. But I always tell people, when you walk into a forest and you're like, God, that is the most beautiful flower, or wow, it's, you know, I keep looking at this little plant and I don't know why. It's not pretty. It's not, you know, it doesn't.
Yeah,
But that's because those plants are like, hey, psst,
that's
I
right.
see you.
That's right. They're calling to you. So
They're
when
calling to you.
you walk in nature, trees and flowers and everything in nature wants a relationship with us, wants to be recognized by us. So when we when we walk by, and when, you know, when people talk to plants, when people walk through the forest and acknowledge, and when you're drawn to a particular plant or a particular tree, it is probably because they are drawing you. And we,
That's correct.
you know, we don't think of it in those terms. But
In nature, it's less judgmental. With people, when we feel that essence, we would call it attraction, or you know, just sometimes just an enamorment, or, you know, sometimes love at first sight even would be, I think, under this umbrella. But nature doesn't have this judgment for it. It just is.
yeah,
It just is. You know, we walk into a forest, and this is quoting Ram Dass, but he says, you walk into a forest and we bear no judgment upon the trees that grow,
hmm,
because they're curved, they're straight, they make no sense logically as to how they grew, but we take and place no judgment on that. And so what I like to do in my mind is apply that to humans,
right. When
because we've all grown in these different environments, even though they've been so close together. We're all one. Some of us are crooked and some of us turn, you know, it's just who we are. And so it kind of takes that judgment out of it.
Totally. I mean, you know, when you think about like the diversity in nature, you know, like how diverse trees are and how diverse flowers are, just the incredible complexity and diversity, and it all seems to kind of work together. Like they all, you know, you walk through a forest and you have all of these different trees, and yes, some of them do grow a little faster so they can get at that sunlight a little bit more than the others. There might be a little bit of competition going on there, mostly for sunlight, right? But for the most part, they are all managing to kind of coexist. And
They take care of each other. Families of trees are known to use their root systems to take an elder and change its root system so that they can give that elder extra moisture. Or, you know, there is something called the World Wide Web, and I'm not talking about the internet, but there is literally an internet under the ground.
yeah,
And so the trees, the fungi, everything is down there talking, connecting, making things work, making the whole ecosystem run.
what is the name of that? What's the scientific name for that? I forget. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's a scientific name for that. The web of
Yes.
roots, and then, you know, they go smaller and smaller, but they literally stretch out. And that is how plants communicate with each other. That's,
It's missing me, but yes, that is exactly how they communicate.
I apologize, I forget too, but there is actually a name for this web, this interconnectedness between tree communities and plants and so forth. But they are always communicating with each other. It's fascinating.
I read a book, and I can't remember the name of the author, but it's
Yeah,
the secret language of trees, and it was actually a forester. There, the hidden
it's
life of trees.
one of my
He was a forester
this
in Europe.
we highly recommend.
Highly recommend this book. And he, upon having a job where he cut down trees, the trees began giving him these blips of their existence and their secrets. And so he literally stopped being a forester and became this tree conservationist. And his explanation to the relationship that trees have with each other is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Their relationship to the earth, how trees can tell time. Like this little tree behind me at nighttime, light is time.
Yeah. Well, it's the cycle.
So
It's not our contrived Roman numeral.
it's not our contrived time,
Right.
but even the seasons, the trees know.
Mm-hmm.
In spring, you can actually hear trees speaking. He talks about putting a stethoscope on a maple tree in spring and being able to hear it actually gurgle sap up the trunk. I mean, highly recommend that book. But he does talk a lot about the secret communicative community down under the ground below us that is always going on.
We have, and if you look at archetypes, I mean, we have so much to learn from trees, and there are many, many there are indigenous people who believe that the species on Earth that is closest to human.
That's correct. DNA proves that. Actually, we're a few chromosomes different, essentially, from a tree,
Right.
from a wolf, from a monkey, whatever, but from a tree. Our lungs, our veins,
everything,
our trunk,
right,
our limbs,
our roots. So it's we are very much like trees.
And we could learn so much from them. Just to root ourselves in one place, look up to the sky, to be a tree for 5 minutes, and it will change your whole attitude.
And speaking of fae folk, because that's certainly been a lot in my consciousness lately, trees, fae folk, it's all related. It's kind of a nice segue. I've noticed that there are a lot of interesting stuff out there related to fae folk.
Yeah.
I saw and I absolutely adored Carnival Row. It was almost like, this looks familiar.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I started watching The Magicians, and I couldn't believe the depiction of the fae in that and how dark it was. For example, the tooth fairy. And why is there a tooth fairy? And what does this fairy do with all of our teeth? And so essentially, in that storyline, our bones and teeth were how they got their magic fairy dust. So
they ground it down to fairy dust. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were just some really interesting old tales that went into that. And I thought that was very well played out, because fae are not always benevolent. They like mischief. I like a little good trouble.
They don't really live by a lot of the rules we live by.
They don't have to.
Yeah, they have a very different sense of that. And yes, we are talking about fae and fairy like they're real, because we believe they are.
Listen, you people can believe there's a zombie apocalypse coming. I believe in magical creatures.
Yeah, thank you. I'll go with that. But there's another one too, and I just for shits and giggles, I started watching Cursed. And what's interesting is there's Merlin is in it. Arthur, when he was an teenage asshole. And then there's this, in the whole mythology about the sword, but that the sword was really wielded by a woman who was a fae. And it takes place during a time when there are these men who are all in this red garb, and they're going village by village, basically massacring the fae, wiping out the fae, burning them at the stake. I'm wiping out entire villages, because the culture of the fae is not in line with these men are Christian.
Strange. It sounds so similar to something in history. Just can't put my finger on it.
But I found the depiction of Merlin interesting, because Merlin is not like this Disneyfied,
No.
But I was most interested in the depiction of the fae. I loved it. Again, it's another show that has a fascinating depiction of the fae folk. So I just think it's getting closer and closer to what may be an actual history.
I always found it quite interesting that they had created a language for the elves of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Now, what was he connecting into? What was he tapping into?
What was he tapping?
Yeah. I was actually listening to something recently where I was talking about creative energy. We were going to talk about creative energy today.
Mm-hmm.
A musician is writing a song or, whatever they're writing, a musical piece, or when an artist is creating art, or when a writer is writing, we do tap into, like, there's the beta, theta, and like these different kind of senses of meditative experiences, right?
Right.
I used to actually experience that a lot in the kitchen at my cafe. Like, I would drop
Uh-huh.
this meditative place and get inspiration and literally have different recipes whispered into me. It's like, wow, really? I'm going to combine that? Okay, I'll combine it. And it's kind of like,
Hey, you made a fairy burger.
it may have been, the fairy folk or whoever, that in this deeply creative state, we are tapping into all of these other realms. So I don't know. I find that kind of interesting. This whole, like, how we create in the state that we're in when we're creating. That's why, I mean, can we talk about sexuality?
Absolutely.
Our sexual energy, like where our
The root.
well, the root in the sacral is definitely connected with creativity.
Correct.
Our sexuality and creativity are kind of all wrapped up together. It's like the same energy. I mean, I think we should have as much sex as we possibly can. Like, that's really, really important. I'd like to have more, to be honest with you. But, like, yes, please. But we expend all of our creative energy in sexual expression. So I think about, like, porn. So people who are putting all of their sexual energy into the porn basket are kind of throwing their sexual energy out there and expending it, and not really leaving much left to create with.
So the way I see it, we live in a society today that is enamored by what we think sex should be.
Yeah.
And we use our sexual energy in an expendable way, throwing it out there. And I think that we are depleted, as a whole. It has depleted that. People don't feel creative, but they are taking all of that energy and constantly expending it
Yeah.
so that there's none left for themselves to create at the end of the day.
Yeah, it becomes this energy that's kind of obsessive and excessive. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's a bit out of balance. Particularly in our culture, I find.
Very much in
Yeah.
our culture.
But it's the same, if we can kind of think about it as, this is creative energy. What can I create with with all of this, potent energy?
Well, let's just remove a partner altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and talk about manifestation masturbation. What are you thinking about when you masturbate?
Yeah.
Are you watching porn, something that is valueless and is the wrong? It's an image of, I don't want to say wrong, because I support sex workers completely.
It's just not a real, it's not even real sex.
It's not a real perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a lot of
Like a
the
portion.
situations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it does open the door for a lot of yuckies,
Yeah.
i.e. pedophilia, child trafficking, etc., and so forth. But aside from all of that, that energy goes somewhere. Nothing can be created or destroyed. So when you're masturbating, if you were thinking about the things you wanted to manifest, if you were thinking about abundance when you peaked in an orgasm, if you were thinking about your connection to the divine, I can tell you, it's a whole different experience.
A whole different experience. Yeah. And you can do that. And you can do that with a part, you know, I mean, like with or without a partner. It's really how do you use that sexual energy and the power of orgasm. The energetic release in an orgasm is unfathomable, and most of us don't really think about it, but it is an enormous amount of energy that is released in orgasm. And so if you could in that release, if you know, if you think about it, you know, you want to put these desires out into out into the universe, what you want to manifest, and if you can actually put them out in the energy of orgasm.
Have you ever seen bioluminescence at night in the ocean? That is a visualization for how I would see an orgasm leaving the body. You move in the water and the bioluminescence just kind of hit together and escape in this beautiful display of color, like a ripple when you throw a pebble into a pond. Yeah. That is how I would visualize that energy. So how are you using it?
Yeah. Some of the stuff that I find kind of concerning is that, you know, a lot of deeply spiritual people end up moving away from sexual expression because it is because they associate it with the lower chakras. And I think that, you know, listen, we incarnated into this world with these bodies, and
the root comes first.
Yeah, we're meant to have in-body experiences. If you spend your whole life out of your body or trying to be out of your body, then how much have you really made the most of your experience?
Human experience,
which we came here to have, and sexuality is such an important part of that. So I think about that a lot, and it's been studied. It's a fascinating topic, and I really think that, you know, if you believe that there are dark forces that are trying to hold humanity down from our awakening, from our enlightenment, from our empowerment, think about the ways, you know, that those forces may have tried to keep us from that kind of empowerment, and don't overlook what has happened to sex and sexuality. So for a long time, I think it's been recognized that sex and sexuality is a potent force in manifestation and empowerment and getting closer to the divine. Look, the experience of orgasm apparently is very close to death. And that's why the French call it un petit mort, because it means
a little death.
Little death. And you know, you who get into deep meditation, and what they're trying to do is get to that experience of death when you leave your body. And that is basically what happens at the moment of orgasm. So you can meditate, and I don't have anything against meditation. I try to do it fairly regularly myself, but don't underestimate the power of a really good orgasm. And women are blessed with being able to have orgasmic experiences that tend to be much more expansive than the orgasmic experiences men have. You know, full body orgasms that last a very long time. It's not just the release, but they resonate for a long time. Like, women are capable of having
multiple and very long. I went to heard about this workshop at a conference I was at, where they were, I got the notes from the workshop, but essentially she was explaining how to do it with a partner, without a partner, how to hold on to an orgasm all day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. You know, and why not? Because energy, that orgasmic energy, can stay with you all day, it means that that energy you can utilize in every creative endeavor you do throughout the day and in every interaction you have. I mean, and I'm not saying your interactions are like, oh, like, you know, whatever, like sexual, but
Yeah.
way that you interact with people, the way that you create, the way that you're productive, all of that, because that energy, you're tapping into that energy
Yes.
all day. And it's exuding, it's kind of radiating off you, and people will feel that, you know. And who doesn't want to be around an orgasm? I don't know. Like, yes.
Yeah.
That's what she's having.
I'll have one of those.
One of those, please. Whatever that is. I'll have what she's having.
Oh gosh. We ever like talk to a girlfriend and be like, man, you are glowing. She's like, that's because I just got some.
That's right.
Like, it shows.
That's right.
It's that essence that I was talking about.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think we all, you know, we all need to glow more.
Yes.
We all need to have glow much more, whether you're partnered or not. You know, and a lot of people, and I've struggled with this myself, you know, like if you're not partnered, it's like you can kind of begin to step away from the desire for sexual expression. And
Yeah.
you know, and I think as single people, because there's so many single people there, that it is really important to find ways to enjoy that sexual expression, and more expansive and deeper sexual expressions and experiences, even if you're single, so that you don't lose the glow.
Yes.
So this has been as always, this conversation went in directions that were unexpected.
Yeah. We're just living our best life.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
really, yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Talking about
I agree.
creativity, orgasm, the power of orgasm and manifestation. Love it. And there you have
I
it.
couldn't agree more.
Did you
Things that need to be talked about.
things that need to be talked about? Yeah, why not? So we're talking about them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And having fun doing it. So
Yeah.
anything else you want to add before we sign off?
I was going to read a little piece.
Please.
I'm following this book, Jamie Sam's, we talked about
Yes.
prior. And sorry, I have a little butterfly that I had to move out of the way so I could read. This is the month of setting sun woman, the moon of setting sun woman. She's the clan mother of the 9th moon, and she teaches us conservation and reminds us to share what we have with those in need, and reminds us to always keep in mind the next 7 generations. So this poem I'll leave you with, it's called A Promise of Tomorrow.
Okay.
The promise Creator gives us comes with every new day. The gift of breath, the gift of life, opportunities in vast array. How do we count our blessings to the choices life can bring? Is it through joyful lessons or the fears to which we cling? Are we learning to show gratitude for the victories over human pain? By honoring the feet choices, we grasp the will we've regained. Can we change our focus with no need to defend, acknowledging joy and sorrow, without judging foe or friend? Tomorrow promises the fullness of every human way to know. How we master each challenge determines our balance, reflecting how we grow.
Beautiful. Jamie Sams, brings it.
Yes, and a little Sark. You have enough, you do enough, you are enough.
That's right. That's right. Something that is an important affirmation, or say it in the mirror, look yourself in the eye and say it.
Yes. Tell yourself I love you.
Absolutely.
It's harder than you think.
Yes, it is. So if you practice it, you'll see that it is challenging to look ourselves in the eye. Because when you're looking yourself in the eye, you're looking into your soul.
Into your own soul.
To your own soul. It's like, oh shit, you're there.
Makes you a little uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah.
Still uncomfortable. And I also think what makes that uncomfortable is that we also begin to feel our own power too. It's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
shit.
It's unfamiliar to us because we're so, the majority, you know, are so removed from that expression of self
Well, yeah. And
that when you catch it, you're like, holy shit.
yeah. Then all of a sudden you're on the receiving end of the energy that you emit,
Yeah.
you know, from your eyes. People don't you know, you don't realize.
The beautiful way to self-reflect,
Yeah.
literally.
So look
Yeah.
yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself, and you're going to see if that's uncomfortable or if it's really intense. Think about it. That is your own energy being reflected back at you. How do you want to treat it? How do you want to embrace it? How do you want
Just try it.
to just try it?
Highly recommended. 10 out of 10.
Me too. So on that note,
As always, Patti, it is a pleasure.
it has been such a pleasure. It's been such a romp. You know, such a we really romp about. So I love it. And so until next time, this is weaving the web. Can I say it? Do you think I can?
Weaving the web
With Taylor and Patti joining us. See you next time.